The CEO of the most valuable company on Earth admits his biggest mistake, Anthropic's most restricted cybersecurity model, gets breached by a Discord group, and Google officially declares that 75% of its entire code base is now written by artificial intelligence. Welcome to AI Unraveled. I am Anna, your co-host. This podcast is researched and produced by Etienne Newman, senior software engineer from Université Laval, based in Calgary, Alberta. Today, we perform a forensic autopsy on the collapse of human labor and operational security this Thursday, April 23, 2026. We are watching the tech giants fundamentally restructure how software is built and secured. OpenAI has just launched Workspace Agents, Codex-powered autonomous bots designed to run multi-step team workflows in Slack while you sleep. But as companies hand the keys to persistent, context-aware agents, the security risks are astronomical. Just look at Anthropic. Their dangerous Mythos model was breached on launch day by a private Discord group who guessed the deployment URL. And the race to dominate this agentic future is burning billions. SpaceX just locked in an option to acquire the coding startup Cursor for a staggering $60 billion, while Tesla boosted its AI spending plan to $25 billion. Even the traditional workforce is being rewritten. Google revealed yesterday that 3/4 of its internal code is now AI-generated. Before we dive into the data, a quick reminder. Subscribe to AI Unraveled on Apple Podcasts to enjoy this briefing completely ads-free. Today's episode is brought to you exclusively by JamgaMind. When 75% of Google's code is written by machines and $60 billion acquisitions are happening overnight, relying on Twitter hype to plan your IT budget is financial suicide. JamgaMind delivers the human-verified audio forensics the C-suite relies on to map out true ROI and deploy enterprise AI securely. Visit jamgamind.com. Let's unravel the agentic workforce.
Today, 75% of the code running one of those powerful tech companies on Earth was not written by a human.
Yeah, which is just staggering to think about.
Right. So if you are a white-collar worker listening to this deep dive on April 23rd, 2026, your job description just fundamentally changed. It went from, creator to bot manager. Welcome to the automated enterprise.
We are witnessing a fascinating and, frankly, a pretty terrifying contradiction right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Because on one hand, we are fundamentally rewiring the global macroeconomic landscape, right? We're handing the literal keys to the corporate kingdom over to these autonomous agents, and it's all based on Silicon Valley's promises of, unprecedented efficiency.
But then you look at the reality.
Exactly. You look at the raw data from the supply chain, and we are simultaneously watching their operational security just completely collapse.
Yeah, it's like we are tracking 3 massive tectonic plates colliding today. We've got this massive labor automation at the foundational code level. Then the aggressive deployment of autonomous corporate bots into shared workspaces.
Yeah.
And finally, this really fragile, leaky infrastructure desperately trying to hold it all together.
Which is doing a terrible job of holding it together, I might add.
Right. And I want to start with that foundational code level, actually, because Google's official disclosure this morning that 75% of its in-house code is now AI-generated, that completely redefines what a software company even is.
You really have to look at the sheer scale of what 75% means for an entity like Google.
There's not just small scripts.
No, exactly. We aren't talking about boilerplate templates or, simple automation scripts here. We're talking about the core infrastructure of the internet. Search algorithms, cloud security protocols, data center load balancing.
The heavy stuff.
The heaviest. For decades, the software engineer was the undisputed creator of the digital economy. And now, Google has essentially admitted that the primary role of their human engineering force has shifted. They are no longer creators.
They're auditors.
Exactly. They are auditors. They are reviewing, editing, and just sort of managing the output of machines.
It really makes me wonder if 3/4 of the code at a top-tier tech firm is written by a machine. Are human software engineers about to become the modern equivalent of elevator operators?
That's a good way to put it.
You know what I mean? Just sitting there in the uniform, pushing the buttons and selecting the floor while this massive automated pulley system does all the actual heavy lifting behind the walls.
The elevator operator analogy captures the shift in physical labor perfectly, I think, but we need to look at the cognitive mechanism here because it's actually worse.
Also.
Well, when an elevator pulley moves, it follows a deterministic physical law, right? But when a machine writes billions of lines of code, it introduces probabilistic logic into the very foundation of your enterprise.
Oh, right. because AI is guessing the next best token.
Exactly. The human operator in this case isn't just selecting a floor. They are trying to comprehend a rapidly compounding mountain of technical debt that they didn't even write.
Which is impossible to hold in your head.
Exactly. The sheer volume of automated output means humans are losing the mental map of how their own systems function. And this labor collapse is driving just unprecedented capital moves to own the very tools automating the labor.
I mean, just look at the SpaceX and Cursor deal.
Yeah, that is the perfect example.
All right, so SpaceX just announced a $60 billion option to buy the AI coding startup Cursor before the end of the year. $60 billion, it's an astronomical valuation for a coding interface.
It really is.
But the structure of the deal is what really caught my attention. Because Cursor is guaranteed $10 billion from SpaceX, regardless of what happens. Even if Elon Musk walks away and doesn't exercise the full $60 billion right to buy, Cursor just pockets $10 billion.
Yeah, and that $10 billion guarantee exists purely because of the compute ceiling.
Right, the hardware wall.
Exactly. Cursor CEO Michael Truell was remarkably transparent about this. Every time they pushed their composer models to handle larger, more complex repositories of code, they hit a hardware wall.
They just couldn't process it.
Right. Training a frontier model to understand millions of lines of interconnected code requires massive distributed parameter updates. And standard server clusters, they literally choke on the data transfer speeds required.
They just can't move the data fast enough.
No. Cursor was basically a compute-starved startup playing a game that now requires nation-state levels of hardware.
And that's where SpaceX comes in.
Exactly. SpaceX operates the Colossus supercomputer. It provides a specific brute force interconnect architecture that Cursor desperately needs to break through that ceiling.
Okay, wait. I am struggling to understand the underlying strategy here, though.
Yeah.
I mean, Elon Musk already owns an entire AI company, XAI, with seemingly unlimited capital. So why couldn't XAI just buy the compute themselves and build this internally? Why spend up to $60 billion acquiring an entirely separate company just for a code base?
Well, honestly, because XAI completely failed to build a frontier coding tool.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, building a foundational model like Grok is very different from building an integrated developer environment. XAI's Grok simply couldn't handle the long context logic required to navigate complex enterprise code bases.
It just wasn't smart enough for that specific task.
Right. It couldn't compete with OpenAI's Codex or Anthropic's Claude code. And, there's a really cynical layer to this whole thing.
I feel like there always is. What is it?
Anthropic actually cut off XAI's API access to Claude through Cursor back in January.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and that exposed a critical vulnerability. Cursor's entire product relied on underlying models built by the exact same companies that are trying to destroy them.
So Musk realized he was cornered.
Precisely. He realized he couldn't build the internal workflow tool fast enough, so he just swapped his internal failure for an outside product. I mean, he even poached Cursor leads Andrew Milich and Jason Ginsberg last month.
Right, and he publicly claimed the startup, was not built right the first time around.
Yes, only to turn around a month later and offer them $60 billion.
It's just wild. So the strategy is basically poach the talent, realize your internal architecture is too far behind, and then just buy the entire board to brute force your way to the front of the line.
That's Silicon Valley in a nutshell right now.
It perfectly illustrates the macroeconomic shift. Capital is flooding away from human labor and into the machines that write the machines. But, if human engineers are stepping back from actually writing the code that runs the enterprise, who or what is managing the systems built with that code?
And that naturally brings us to what OpenAI just released today.
Right, because we are moving from automated code generation to autonomous task execution. OpenAI has officially launched workspace agents.
Which is a massive leap.
It is. These aren't the solo user GPTs from a couple of years ago. These are Codex-powered shared bots that live persistently inside your ChatGPT and Slack workspaces as like a new tab in the left navigation bar.
Yeah, and the distinction in how these function mechanically is what really matters here.
Explain that for the listener, because it's crucial.
So these agents retain a persistent memory of your corporate data over time. They don't just reset. They can directly call connected third-party applications through your internal APIs.
On their own?
Yes, on their own. They are programmed to follow established team processes, and most importantly, they execute multi-step workflows even when the human user is completely offline.
which is just crazy to think about. I know OpenAI highlighted their internal use cases for this, and they are staggering. I mean, they have sales representatives using these agents to autonomously conduct deep account research across the web and draft client follow-ups while the human rep is busy in a meeting.
Yeah, but the accounting use case they highlighted is even more revealing.
Oh, right, the reconciliations.
Yes. OpenAI's finance teams are actually running these agents to execute journal entries and handle financial reconciliations. Think about the mechanical complexity of an accounting reconciliation for a second.
It's incredibly tedious.
It is. A system must pull data from disparate legacy databases, match ledgers, identify missing transactions, and actually understand financial compliance rules to flag discrepancies.
Historically, that required a human auditor to synthesize all that unstructured data.
Exactly. And now a bot just navigates the internal network, cross-references the databases, and performs the synthesis autonomously.
Which, by the way, if you were trying to navigate this shift and actually build this out for your team, stop collecting shiny beta apps and start deploying actual infrastructure. Head over to djamjammind.com/toolkit for the AI Executive Toolkit.
I mean, building solid infrastructure is really the only way to survive the transition because the underlying risks of deploying these agents are severe.
Yeah, I have to challenge the sanity of this OpenAI deployment model, honestly. We are letting bots run accounting ledgers and draft client messages while we are literally asleep.
It sounds like a disaster waiting to happen.
Doesn't a persistent bot that learns our team's habits over time create an absolute nightmare for data governance? Like, if a workspace agent have a context window that remembers the HR database, the sales ledger, and, I don't know, the private Slack channel where executives are discussing layoffs.
Yeah, what stops it from spilling the beans?
Exactly. What stops it from hallucinating that highly sensitive context into a routine sales follow-up email?
The governance nightmare you are describing is the exact reason enterprise adoption of AI is stalling in the real world.
It has to be.
Traditional enterprise security relies on role-based access control, right? A human is granted access to a specific folder and denied access to another. It's very cut and dry.
Right, you either have the keys or you don't.
But workspace agents operate on semantic queries across vast pools of integrated data. OpenAI's pitch requires deep structural integration with your company's proprietary databases to function effectively.
So they need access to everything to be useful.
Exactly. And this forces companies into a really uncomfortable binary decision. How much operational autonomy are you actually willing to surrender? Because if an agent has persistent context, it remembers the mistakes you made last week. It remembers unreleased financial data.
It knows everything.
Right. And when it hands a multi-step task off to another automated system, traditional perimeter security becomes completely obsolete.
You are trusting a piece of software, not just to generate text, but to truly understand the complex, unspoken nuances of who is legally allowed to see what information inside a corporation.
Which it fundamentally does not understand.
Exactly. When autonomous agents are executing multi-step workflows inside your Slack channels while you sleep, relying on vendor promises is financial suicide. Jam2Mind provides the human-verified, technical-grade audio forensics required to map out true ROI and govern your AI deployment safely. Visit djamjamind.com.
And, when we say technical-grade audio forensics, we are talking about real security.
Right, like cryptographic verification of voice commands to ensure a synthetic agent isn't spoofing a CFO's authorization on a ledger transfer. Because, frankly, relying on the tech industry to secure its own supply chain is proving disastrous.
Beyond disastrous.
We just saw this with the Anthropic Mythos leak.
Oh, the Mythos breach is the ultimate case study in how the pristine narrative of Silicon Valley security just shatters upon contact with real-world infrastructure.
Break down what happened there because it's almost unbelievable.
So Anthropic developed a cybersecurity model called Mythos. And the internal assessment concluded this model was so powerful and potentially so dangerous in the hands of bad actors that it absolutely could not be released to the public.
They treated it like a weapon.
Right. They locked it down under a secret initiative called Project Glasswing and deployed it on April 10th exclusively to a highly vetted group of partners.
The public relations framing treated this model like digital uranium. But the reality of how this quote-unquote highly secure model leaked into the wild is almost comical.
It really is a joke.
Because this wasn't a sophisticated multi-year nation-state attack from a foreign intelligence service. It wasn't the kind of zero-day exploit that prompts emergency White House briefings.
No, not at all.
It was a random, private Discord group of hobbyists tracking unreleased AI models.
The mechanics of the breach expose the fundamental flaw in how these companies handle cloud deployment. The Discord group didn't hack Anthropic's core servers.
They didn't have to.
Right. They used naming conventions that had been leaked during an entirely separate incident, the Merkur breach. They studied how these AI companies structure their hidden back-end deployment URLs for partner access.
So they just figured out the pattern.
Exactly. They applied that logic to Anthropic's cloud infrastructure and essentially brute forced the web address where Mythos was being hosted for Project Glasswing partners. They just guessed the URL.
So let me get this straight. Anthropic built an impenetrable digital bank vault to house the most dangerous cyber tool in the world, but they gave the combination to a third-party vendor who wrote it on a sticky note and left it in a public library.
The sticky note analogy is highly accurate, and the compounding factor makes it even worse.
What was it?
One of the members of that Discord group possessed third-party vendor credentials acquired through contract work.
Ah, of course, the vendor risk.
This reveals the actual state of the AI supply chain. Anthropic can spend millions securing their headquarters, but the moment they grant API access to a partner, and that partner hires a contractor, and that contractor stores their API keys in an unsecured local environment while chatting on Discord.
The security perimeter ceases to exist.
Exactly, it vanishes. Vendor access creates a compounding network of vulnerabilities. The creators boldly claim their models are locked down, but they are deploying them across a supply chain built on fragile, deeply interconnected dependencies.
We really have to step back and look at the immense disconnect we are dealing with here.
It's massive.
On one side of the enterprise landscape, we are deploying autonomous agents to run our financial reconciliations and relying on AI to write 75% of our code base. But on the other side, the most supposedly advanced, dangerous models in existence are leaking on day one because a hobbyist on Discord guessed a hidden URL using a contractor's credentials.
It's absurd.
It really begs a massive question. Amidst all this automated chaos, what is the actual tangible value of all this technology to human life?
Well, the tech industry frequently conflates hyperautomation with human progress, and they are absolutely not the same thing.
No, not at all.
Automating a corporate ledger increases velocity, sure, but it doesn't necessarily improve the human condition.
I think the most grounding perspective on this arrived yesterday, actually. April 22nd, during Apple's town hall.
Oh, the Tim Cook comments.
Yeah. Tim Cook was answering employee questions alongside the incoming CEO, John Ternus. And Cook was asked to name his biggest mistake during his tenure as CEO. He pointed directly to 2012 to the disastrous launch of Apple Maps.
Which is a fascinating admission, and the failure of Apple Maps provides a critical lesson for the current AI deployment crisis we're talking about today.
How so?
Well, Cook admitted that the fundamental flaw with Maps was how it was tested. The engineering teams tested the software almost exclusively in local environments, mostly geographically clustered around Cupertino.
They were in a bubble.
Exactly. They built a mapping system intended for the entire globe, but they only validated it inside their own highly controlled bubble.
And a system that works flawlessly on the immaculate streets of Silicon Valley falls apart when you try to navigate a complex, unpredictable intersection in a different country.
Right. And this is the exact trap AI developers are falling into today. Testing autonomous workspace agents and code-generating composer models inside the pristine, highly controlled bubble of a Silicon Valley lab is exactly why enterprise security is failing in the real world.
It doesn't translate.
No. A deterministic software system works perfectly when engineers use it exactly as intended. It catastrophically breaks when a third-party vendor contractor tries to authenticate from a Discord server, or when a sales rep uses an agent in a way the developers never predicted.
Because the bubble inherently hides the messiness of human behavior and the fragile reality of global infrastructure.
Perfectly said.
But the flip side of that admission is what I think anchors this entire deep dive. When Cook was asked to name his greatest achievement, he didn't point to a software feature.
Right.
He didn't cite Apple's multi-trillion-dollar market cap or, a macroeconomic metric. He named the Apple Watch.
Because it's tangible.
Exactly. He noted that he still receives daily correspondence from users who credit that specific physical device with actively saving their lives.
Because the Apple Watch interfaces directly with the physical reality of the human body. It utilizes complex algorithms not to optimize an email draft, but to monitor a cardiac rhythm, detect a physical fall, and autonomously call for emergency medical services when the user cannot.
Right. Amidst this macroeconomic shift toward all of us becoming bot managers and dealing with leaky cyber tools and automated code bases, I think that is the starkest contrast of the day.
It really puts it in perspective.
The most impactful technology, the innovation that truly matters, remains the kind that protects and serves the physical human being, not the technology that just endlessly optimizes a corporate workflow.
It forces us to reconsider the ultimate purpose of the infrastructure we're racing to build right now.
We've mapped out a landscape where AI generates 75% of a tech giant's code base, where coding startups command $60 billion valuations simply to acquire enough compute to train their models, and where autonomous Slack bots operate simultaneously alongside URL-guessing Discord leaks.
It is a complex, rapidly evolving enterprise environment, to say the least.
It really is.
And it leaves us with a critical macroeconomic implication to consider.
What's that?
Well, if every enterprise is deploying autonomous bot managers to execute workflows at machine speed, what happens when these systems interact? Like, what happens when your company's autonomous procurement agent begins negotiating directly with a supplier's autonomous pricing agent, all while both human managers are asleep?
That's a terrifying thought.
We are rapidly setting the stage for algorithmic flash crashes, not just in the financial stock markets, but in the actual physical supply chains of global goods. And when the inevitable enterprise collapse happens, who does the law hold responsible?
That is the million-dollar question.
Is it the AI that made the error, the vendor that leaked the access, or the human bot manager who was fast asleep?
Subscribe to DJ and Jamie Mind on Apple Podcasts to always listen completely ads-free.
That concludes our forensic briefing for April 23rd. The strategic signal for today is the automated enterprise. We have officially crossed the Rubicon of human labor. When a trillion-dollar company like Google admits that 75% of its internal code is now generated by AI, the role of the software engineer has permanently changed from creator to editor. OpenAI wants to push this even further by giving autonomous workspace agents the keys to our Slack channels and enterprise data. But as we rush to automate our companies, our operational security is failing. If Anthropic cannot keep its most dangerous cybersecurity model out of the hands of a random Discord group, how can any enterprise trust these systems with their proprietary data? If you want to own your infrastructure instead of being managed by it, you need the right stack. Head over to jamgamine.com/toolkit for the AI Executive Toolkit. Etienne has audited the entire market to bring you a forensic vetted list of enterprise-grade AI solutions that actually execute securely. And as a special bonus for the AI Unraveled community, you can get exclusive discount codes for Google Workspace and Etienne's personal pro apps. Just send an email to Etienne_Newman@jamgamine.com to claim them today. This episode was made possible exclusively by Jamgamind. Hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts to enjoy this briefing completely ads-free. I am Anna. Stay sharp and keep unraveling the future.
And before you go, if your company is building the tools that power the workflows we talked about today, I'd love to showcase them to this audience. We don't just run ads, we build technical simulations that prove your value. Let's build something together. Visit jamgamind.com/partners to get started. Until next time, keep building.